friends, I wanted to spend a few minutes here with you going through this red leather art journal that I made. It's been a long process for this journal. I want to start with talking about the piece of leather that I used. A friend of mine sent me this piece of leather, and this is what it looked like. I cut it here and then put the rings in it. It was already like this, which is, part of the, I'm guessing part of the tanning process happened here. I liked this irregular edge, and I wanted to build this book around this irregular edge. So that's how that got started. I just cut it. I originally put this book in my Etsy shop thinking that somebody would think it was cool, and I guess nobody did. And so then I decided that I would use it, and I got started working on it. Let me see. I made a page in the back kind of talking about how things got started. I started creating in it in September 2023. So this journal I worked in about a year or so. And what I started doing was I was doing some intuitive drawing, which was a lot of line making and scribbles and color application. And in the process of doing that, I started putting those in this book. I started to want to build a color story so that the colors sort of flowed through the book, and then also really consciously work on texture in this book. So there's all kinds of, there's paper, there's fabric, there's crochet, there's different pieces in here that I tried to just sort of add to the texture. So this is it's not a linear, I didn't work through this linearly. I just added pages where I needed to. And what happened was there was a lot of pages that ended up blank on this side. And so after I had worked through a lot of pages, I went back and started adding things to sort of go with the color story that I was building. So again, thinking about color and texture and building from that. This is a ginkgo leaf. There's a store here in town that has ginkgo trees in their parking lot. And so every time I go there, I pick up their ginkgo leaves when they're falling off. I took old paintings and cut them down and put them in. So this was something I had worked on years ago. It was in my scrap pile. I added. Same for this. Just added stuff. It got some black on it at some point. It was up against something black. I'm guessing maybe one of these. And again, just adding black here. Piece of paper. All those X's kind of mirrored here. Another piece of that drawing. This is one of those intuitive drawings that I put in here. And, this is just sort of an exploration of line and color and staying present in the moment. This probably says something. I don't remember what I wrote, and so it's kind of chicken scratchy. This is watercolor right here. And this is watercolor. Or that might actually be ink. Some very faint pencil lines right there. Gold gesso. This is a picture from a book, and it's got that really high photographic kind of sheen to it, which of course if you paint acrylic paint over that, you can then scratch off. So I did some experimentation here with adding paint and scratching it off and adding gold. And just sort of layering things up. And then right there's a scratch where I scratched it out. I have all kinds of things in my paper bin. I would live in a really nerdy town, and there's a couple of places that are bars here in town that have, one of them has an equation up every week, so people can go in and work on math, while you're drinking beer, because that's a thing you can do. And my partner did that and brought the page home, and so it has been in my paper bin, and I added that to this collage. There's some pencil, some watercolor, Neocolor 2s. Probably that brown is probably Craypaw. So just a whole mix of materials here. This was something I drew on and then pulled a jelly print. Here's a piece of dyed fabric that I added some things to that are paper, and just felt really organic and sort of went with this color. This has got some, I think that this has turmeric on it. I think that's what that gathered kind of sediment is right here, is probably turmeric from the dyeing process. I didn't try to peel it off. I liked it, so it will flake off, so I'm kind of careful with that. This was a tag that I did some, put a few little drawings on. I liked these colors together. This is a piece of a painting canvas that I tore up, and it has quite a few little bits. You might have seen them hanging out earlier, so that just kind of goes through there. Again, a lot of found paper, some old photographs from some stuff that I got from my dad's estate. This piece of paper is very fragile because it's old. These are papers. This is from India. This is from Nepal. These papers are, this was actually gift wrap. Somebody gave me a present, and I saved the wrapping paper and put it in my paper stash. And then this is some from Nepal. And here's a crochet bit of something I had worked on for another project and just really liked these colors together, so put them all with another intuitive drawing. Another little collage. This is an envelope that I actually put a little collage in, and then this has a kind of a drop down. Just trying to put things together that are interesting to hold and handle. And then some more collage on that. This pink piece is off of like a Polaroid kind of a picture. If you take them apart, that plastic piece is in between the sandwich is of layers. This is an old calendar, 2013. I just thought this was a really interesting image, and I liked this, putting this film piece on here, and an old piece of Gesso magazine, and then some drawings. And I just liked all these reds together. This started out as a drawing exploration. I was just doing some practice with some pens, and I liked how graphic it turned out, so I put it here in the book to sort of go with this, there's some black happening and then some red, so it all kinds of goes together. This is another one of those intuitive drawing, and I made this, and I'm really fascinated by this shape. I like these colors. I like how that kind of comes together, and it goes with that black. This is another thing that I drew and then jelly printed on, and this, what I think was probably Neocolor, really resisted that print, and so there's this really lovely print with a resistance going on. I need to run some more experiments on this. I loved how it turned out and haven't been able to reproduce it, mostly because I haven't tried. But it's one of those things that's there that I'm holding on to as just a really interesting, you get a really interesting texture from that. I think this page was a recipe page where I followed what is essentially a recipe: paint, glue down things, do this, do that, do that. So it's just like a formula that you follow. And then at the end you have a page, and I think I was playing around with that and ended up with this kind of vivid orangey page to go with that page. This is where I was working on my sewing machine, which was not sewing well, and then was also a page that I did a sketch on. And I'm really in love with this little guy, so I put him in here. Another one of those intuitive drawing pages, but I think this one was actually on something I had spray painted. I think this is spray paint. One of the fun things about this book is I really did dig around in my scrap bin and try to pull pieces out that already had marks on them, so I wasn't starting with a blank page all the time. And I like that layered look that you get when you've put stuff down and put more stuff down and put more stuff down. This was another one of those formulas where we had to trace something, and so I traced some trees. I was trying to make a kind of a play on a Van Gogh Starry Night, which I think works pretty well, mostly because of those trees look exactly like that. And some great quotes on this page. Again, another ginkgo leaf. I love those ginkgo leaves on a jelly print and a watercolor card. Just really, really nice stuff. This is from one of my weeks where I was doing some painting, and I just taped off a bunch of squares and started painting and trying to work through some skill building. And I didn't like this, but I thought it was kind of fun to put in this book because I've got some notes on it. And just, again, another piece for interest in this book. Some watercolors with some drawings. Again, working on that color flow. That book that I talked about earlier where I did acrylic paint on and then scratched it off, that's an image from that book. It's a giant book, so I pulled a lot of pages out, thinking I was going to alter the book, and because the book is so big, I kind of got overwhelmed with it. And but I have been using the pages that I pulled out pretty consistently. Mark making on an old piece of paper, which does some interesting things when you have an old piece of paper that you're working on. You don't know what's on it. There's clearly a lot of oils on this page, so there's some bleeding from that. It's just really interesting. Another just kind of collage drawing practice. I made a lot of these watercolor cards a while back, and so doing some drawing on them and then adding them in, I think have been kind of interesting in this book. Again, thinking about color and texture. Same, another color texture. This is a jelly print of some crochet. I inked the plate and then put the crochet down and then pulled the print, and so you have this what almost looks like a Xerox of, sometimes if you're old enough and you used Xerox machines back in the day, when you would put something down on the glass and then put the lid down and run a Xerox copy. It reminds me of this. You get that sort of picture pattern situation happening that I think is really interesting. These were just some postcards that had sort of been accruing around me, and I liked kind of sticking them in as some different textures and heights in this. More drawing practice. This is actually stuck together. This is probably one of my all-time favorite spreads in any of my books. I love this pink. This is a lot of things from my bins of paper, and then another one of those great prints that I pulled on top of on top of Neocolors and Craypas, and things that had already been drawn, and then I inked the plate and pulled the print, and it's so interesting to me. And I love this image with this weight. This is something from Brandy Kincaid. She puts out a monthly pack that is just full of delightful materials, and her stuff ends up in my books a lot. This was a magazine page. Yeah, this was a magazine page that I did some collage on. And again, another watercolor card that I did some collage on. And I've reinforced this one because it was kind of falling apart and I didn't want it to. The back of that magazine page. And again, pulling this together with this paper, this repeating paper and the color. I love this teal. I remember when I made this page, I was at the beach, and it was just a really lovely day outside working on the picnic table outside. I carved a stamp a few years ago, and this stamp is part of that. I ended up trying to add some branches, so it's the original carving ended up a little bit bigger. The stamp is just like this size right here. And again, some found papers. This was a calendar page originally underneath this that I painted and added stuff to. Another one of those giant ginkgo leaves. All these ginkgo leaves in this book are real leaves that I pressed. Drawing some big flowers, and then I cut that one out and put it with this because the colors were really good together. This is one of those things that it really, I think, works really well as a layer in here. I added it, basically knowing it was going to go there and be sticking out from here. And then that orange coming together as well. I drew a lot of these geodes from a class I took a while back and just had a lot of fun with it. And so several of them ended up in this book as just some fun focal points. I love vellum. I love how you can see through. These are actually from a print of another journal page that is from another book. I took a photograph, I printed it out on my printer, I was using it, I made a book out of actually that, and then these are some scraps that got left, and I liked how they kind of lined up in here and gave us a page. This is a piece of canvas, something that I was working on that I ended up cutting up for another book, and this was a scrap that was left over, and I did some scribbles on it, and ended up fraying the edges a lot so it would go in this book and feel part of this. It's a stamp I carved last year. And then the last page ended up being a portrait of myself because I took a picture of myself and really liked it. It was actually a picture of me holding this book. And so it's sort of a recursive thing where I think this is the first time I've ever done a self-portrait, which it's, maybe not the greatest picture, but it's a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun doing it and then putting it here in the book. And then that's the end. And then this last page is some details about how I wrote in the book and worked on it. And then there's a piece of really stiff board in the back to hold it all together and make it pretty stable. And there it is, my red leather art journal. Thanks for coming out.